Hello, folks. Today's episode sponsored by one of my favorite sponsors, sunsetlakesebede.com. But it's not just their typical left is best discount today. Why? Because they are announcing they rolled out a new product. That's right. They've just released their new gummies that contain they're called Delta 9 gummies. They contain 5 milligram of hemp-derived THC, as well as the 50 milligrams of CBD. It's a gentle 10-to-1 blend that you are sure to love. Now, I got to tell you, I got to be honest. I have not tried these yet. Why? Because it's Friday. And I don't try the gummies with the THC on the weekdays because I'm an old guy and I'm not prepared for that necessarily. It's not like it was in the early days for me. But right now, when you use the code DELTA at checkout, I got news for you. This weekend is going to be my little experimentation.
Your time?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So stupid.
Folks, I'm so embarrassed. Right now, when you use your code DELTA at checkout, you can get 25% off of all of Sunset Lake's gummies, including the new Delta 9 gummies. So, like me, you could be having your melatonin gummies at night, or you could be enjoying your focus gummies during the day with lion's mane and or the relax with ashwagandha mushroom in it. And they have the normal sour gummies with CBD and the 1% THC full spectrum that you can get. All of these gummies are 25% off. The sale ends on March 6th. See sunsetlakesebede.com for terms and conditions. And as always, you can get 20% off site-wide with the code LEFTISBEST. That's one word, folks. Left is best. All right. And now it is time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's casual Friday. That means Monday is casual Monday. Tuesday, casual Tuesday. Wednesday, casual hump day. Thursday, casual Thurs. That's what we call it. And Friday, casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, March 1st, 2024. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Heather Parton, columnist at salon.com, or as you may know her, Digby, from the Uber blog Hullabaloo. Also on the program today, Israeli massacre of unarmed Palestinians. More information coming in. The EU resumes its UNRWA funding. And just to be clear, it's just the EU, not the individual members of the EU. Trump and Biden at the border dueling each other as to who is more hostile to immigrants. Republicans spiraling as their impeachment plans implode. House and Senate punt their partial government shutdown. I should say Republicans in the House and Senate punt their partial government shutdown to a full government shutdown 3 weeks from now. Washington State's largest labor union endorses uncommitted in the upcoming Washington State primary. Republicans blocked the Senate bill for the federal IVF protection. IRS is going after millionaires and 100,000aires who decided not to pay their taxes over the past 7 years. New York Times launches a leak investigation versus a how did this happen investigation over its mass rape reports. Tesla to face racism class action lawsuit from 6,000 black workers. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed Casual Friday as we wrap up the week. Emma Vigland here with her
Casual Friday
attire. Yes, there it is.
Don't worry, Sam. I'm fixing the camera. I'm getting us aligned. We're all set.
Thank you very much.
Look
I
at
appreciate that. There we go.
I know
Feeling
this
a
is
little
your
bit less.
thing.
I know. I'm gonna do a little bit like.
No, but when you do it, then
No,
it doesn't.
I'm just doing it this way. I'm not doing it that way.
All right. Sorry to confuse the podcast audience, but we're messing with our cameras.
Well, people understand. People understand what's happening here. Let's get into it. I mean, there's not, in many respects, incredibly busy news week. Today, just looking back on some of that, of course, more information to the extent that we're going to get any more information from this massacre in northern Gaza that took place yesterday, the day before. Depending on, I guess, how you're calculating the hours.
Well, I mean, they've killed almost all of the journalists there, and many of the journalists had to flee. This is by design, by the way, so that they can say Hamas-run health ministry says X, which discredits it. If they wanted, there could be reporters in there who were able to document this, but this is explicitly what Israel does not want.
And all the UN agencies have said that they were not involved in this food distribution. Want to play a couple of clips about this and then talk about a piece that was written 1 week ago in Axios, I think it was, of all places. But here is Channel 4 in Britain, speaking with Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner, IDF spokesperson, as to whether Israel takes any responsibility for the over 100,000 Palestinians killed after they fired into the crowd.
100 Palestinians, not 100,000.
I'm sorry, over 100 Palestinians killed.
Yeah.
1,000 injured in some fashion or another. And it's fascinating the way this is being reported in some of the print media. There's a lot of talk about chaos.
Oh, yes.
And I'm just trying to in the headlines. Now, yes, I'm sure there was chaos there. There was chaos the moment that aid trucks came in because you have a population that 25% of which is on the brink of famine, full-on famine.
They're starving to death.
Particularly in northern Gaza. It's even worse there. Well, here is the IDF spokesperson.
Also notice his
It's
accent.
Lieutenant Colonel
He's
Peter
not
Lerner, a
British
spokesperson
accent.
for the Israel Defense Forces. Lieutenant Colonel, eyewitnesses say that more than 100 Palestinians died when Israeli soldiers fired on numerous occasions into a crowd. Do you take responsibility for those deaths?
No, of course not, because those claims are blatantly lies. The IDF conducted a humanitarian operation this morning in order to assist and facilitate the movement of food supplies, as we have been doing over the last 4 days in a similar manner. The supplies went in, passed through our positions, and then continued to move forward, where a mob stormed the convoy, bringing it at some stage to a halt. But in the state of chaos on the site, people were being pushed, trampled, and in some cases run over.
When you say a mob, do you mean starving people who have been deprived of food because you haven't let the aid in? The UN officials told us that no aid has been allowed into northern Gaza for more than a month.
The UN obviously aren't up to date on their information. The last 4 days, convoys like we conducted this morning. This morning was 38 truckloads passed into northern Gaza to distribute food supplies, which are international donations, but on private vehicles that were conducting the convoy into northern Gaza.
Well,
so
multiple agencies say some aid is going in, but not nearly enough. And you spoke of a mob. I want to put to you what Save the Children said. They said, while children die from lack of food, Their parents are killed trying to get it for them. That's the reality, isn't it? These are starving people, desperate for anything they can get their hands on.
Kathy, the incident on the convoy this morning was nothing to do with Israel. The IDF secured the convoy, it went through, and it got out of hand on the ground as people were looting the trucks.
Pause it for 1 second. I just want to point out how far this guy's had to move in the context of this one interview. Everything that you hear about this is a lie. Then Israel has nothing to do with this except for the fact that they were there shooting on people, that they were a mob, as if this was like some type of looting situation, after the Super Bowl or something. It's stunning.
I mean, it's incredible. They're using language like was referred to the victims of Hurricane Katrina. They're looting. They're. Why are some people desperate? Right? They're being starved to death, and the idea that this is looting. This is aid. This is not like a store. This is food that is being delivered humanitarianly, and people are crawling all over each other because there's just not enough aid coming in. Israel's turning away the majority of the aid trucks for little things like medical kits having scalpels in them. That's what Jeff Merkley said on Democracy Now! The other day. He went there firsthand to the Rafah crossing because that has a sharp edge. They're and then they don't let the rest of the truck come through. They turn the entire truck around if it has anything the Israeli Defense Forces deem to be dangerous, like a scalpel.
Continue with this. I mean, the news host is doing a good job, at least, of making this guy account for what he's talking about.
And it got out of hand on the ground as people were looting the trucks.
Yeah, but your troops fired shots.
No, there were warning shots fired, and then when it got out of hand, the forces retreated back into the formation along the Gaza Wadi area. That was not true. That is just a blatant lie. That is absolutely inaccurate.
So why do you think people are so angry then?
I think there is a lot of things that are going on in these days. And of course, there is a dire situation in the Gaza Strip, a human tragedy. And that is precisely why we are facilitating humanitarian actions like this morning, or the airdrops of supplies into Gaza, both in the north and in the south, or the continued access and movement through Rafah or through Kerem Shalom crossing. Of course, there's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of frustration precisely because Hamas launched the war on the 7th of October.
All right, we don't need to hear any more about this. The idea of frustration when you're talking about literally one of the most devastating sort of actions of conscious starvation of a population. Here is a video that shows I-24's News English Twitter account. Posted video from presumably, I guess, from a drone of some sort, some type of aerial footage.
The IDF put this out there too. I don't know why they thought this made them look good, by the way.
This is basically you're watching starving people running to trucks.
So yeah, there's no sound, but perhaps they put this out because almost looks like they're ants, or you can't see their faces, but this is what the reality is here.
People are just running desperately to try and get food.
I mean, this is kind of useful in the point of view from the Israeli military, where they have this advanced weaponry, and you can see how precise they're able to be. And we just know.
And here's the thing.
They can deliberately target anybody. Yeah, go on.
This is a piece from Axios from February 24th. U.S. officials say they are increasingly concerned that, quote, Gaza is turning into Mogadishu. Mogadishu, of course, is the capital of Somalia. And it was back in, I guess, was it 90s? I mean, maybe people remember this Black Hawk Down episode where there was such chaos and lawlessness and desperation that it was impossible for U.S. military, I think, were basically attacked there. And because there was absolutely no order. It was just a series of gangs. Now, when they're talking about this this happening in Mogadishu, I don't think the issue is quite a question of roving gangs at this point, but rather no ability, no structure, no societal structure whatsoever, and incredibly desperate people. There has been and this was a week ago, there's been a significant decrease in the number of aid trucks entering Gaza in recent weeks, as according to the UN Humanitarian Aid Office, OCHA. On at least 4 days in the last 2 weeks, less than 10 aid trucks entered the enclave. And this is the issue. UN humanitarian coordinator for the Palestinian territory, James McGoldrick, told reporters this week that members of the Hamas-run civilian police force had been operating in Rafah and on the Gaza side of the nearby Kerem Shalom crossing to ensure security for the aid trucks. But they left their posts earlier this month after being targeted by Israel. At least 11 members of the police force in Rafah. And this is just the police force. The reality is that Hamas is also the government there, or at least providing services to the extent that, we can sort of draw a parallel. And the civilian police force is being targeted by the Israelis. I mean, I don't know any more necessarily than civilians, but certainly 11 members at least of the police force in Rafah have been killed in Israeli airstrikes in recent weeks. This is according to U.S. officials. This opened the way for armed gangs to take control of the aid, and also providing, and I don't see, you can see that aerial footage. It doesn't look like there's armed gangs there. It looks like there are people running desperately to get the food aid, and that Israel created no apparatus in which to distribute the aid because they're not allowing organizations like the UN or others to do their jobs.
And that's the aid that gets in too, right? As I said, a great majority of it is getting turned away. And then it's, at least based on the numbers that we've had for the past few weeks, perhaps, I mean, I could only pray the Biden administration is attempting to pressure them on this matter, but it doesn't seem to be working.
Well, we can dip into that in a moment. But as the result of the security vacuum, many of the trucks that have recently entered Gaza have been overrun, in part, at least, by Palestinians desperate for any kind of aid, as the conditions in the enclave continue to increasingly deteriorate and hunger grows. The hopelessness and desperation in Gaza have created, quote, a great deal of law and order challenges that's affecting our ability to do the work here, McGoldrick said. Getting aid to northern Gaza has been especially difficult. OCHA is hoping Israel will open a crossing in the north so aid trucks can directly access the areas in most need of supplies. And it did, but of course, there's no apparatus there in which to distribute the aid. And Israel has created this sort of chaotic scene and then decided to shoot into it.
Yep. I mean, we know what the point is. We know what the point is at this juncture. That they want as many people dead as possible. And I just want to say, famine in a modern society, hunger, it's a policy choice. Always. It's a political choice.
Without a doubt.
In any of these contexts. But this is
it's been weaponized.
Genocide. Yep.
All right. We're going to talk to Digby in a moment more about the sort of like domestic political implications of this and the attempts to pressure the Biden administration to do something other than bemoan their helplessness in this. We will get to that in just a moment. And, one of the big elements of that is these in Washington State is one of the biggest unions in the country. I should say in the state, the biggest unions in the state, the local chapter of a national union has come out and said they're going to endorse uncommitted. We'll talk about that in a minute. First, a couple of words from our sponsors. Obviously, you're listening to the show, you care about politics. And I hope you understand that the future of America, obviously, is in the hands of people who care about politics. If you don't believe me, you should listen to Future Hindsight. Often we feel helpless and powerless, like we can't do anything to change the status quo. But what if you could actually be a strategic player in politics? Future Hindsight offers you an independent, unaffiliated perspective into what's at stake in this year's elections and what you can do about it at the local, state, and national level. On the podcast, Mila Atmos shows you just how much power you have and how to use it. Think about it this way. If each of us could do just 2% more than we're doing now, it could transform our democracy. So tune in every Thursday. Get engaged and stay engaged. This week, Mila is joined by Princeton's Sam Wang, who exposes why gerrymandering is not just unfair, but it is also deeply undemocratic. If you've ever felt like your vote didn't matter, then you don't want to miss this one. Find them at futurehindsight.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, today's program in part sponsored by nuts.com. You ever wish you could go to Willy Wonka's candy factory? Well, it's not exactly possible. They also had that sort of like disastrous thing in like Scotland or something. I couldn't quite make out what happened there.
There was like a Wonka themed party that was like extremely grim and upsetting.
No, it was AI generated. We can talk about this in the fun
All right.
half.
Well,
yeah.
yes, okay. I don't know. I just saw that on thing, but
It's very funny.
But look,
yes.
folks, you don't have to deal with that. Why? Nuts.com. In addition to an amazing selection of nuts, cashews, almonds, I mean, all sorts of nuts, mixed nuts, they have tons of classic candies like butterscotch, fudge, and licorice. Licorice is also very healthy for you, black licorice, is my understanding. Please join me in thanking nuts.com for supporting the Majority Report. Right now, when you go to nuts.com/majority, new customers get a free gift with their purchase and free shipping on orders of $29 or more. Nuts.com is your one-stop shop for freshly roasted nuts, for dried fruit, for sweets, for, stuff you would put in your pantry, like specialty flours, more stuff like that for baking. They have a wide selection, and it means that there is something for everyone. Nuts.com quality is the top priority. They roast their nuts, pop their corn the same day it ships. So it reaches you deliciously fresh. It's not something that's been sitting on the supermarket shelf for, a month. Satisfaction is guaranteed. We have had a great experience with our nuts in this office, though it has created a little bit of friction at times when I have dipped into other people's stashes. The strategy I take is eat all of mine first,
Right.
and then just very slowly,
Pick into mine. Pick into
Exactly.
my cashews. Huh.
Yep. Nuts.com offers plenty of gluten-free options as well, organic choices, other diet-friendly products. If you're looking for something sweet, if you're looking for something savory, or you want to stock up on cooking essentials, you're bound to find something to try. You can shop a la carte at any time or opt into hassle-free auto deliveries, so you never run out of your favorite items. If you're already stocked up at home, they also sell directly to businesses. Right now, Nuts.com is offering new customers a free gift with a purchase and free shipping on orders of $29 or more at Nuts.com/majority. So go check out all the delicious options at Nuts.com/majority. You're going to receive a free gift and free shipping when you spend $29 or more. Also, one other note, and let's keep this in the full show. Cedar Seeds is gearing back up because it's about to be springtime. So if you're looking for cannabis seeds, I don't know if I have to say that, cedarseeds.com. I think we're going to start taking orders next week. But in the meantime, if you grew something from Cedar Seeds last year and you have pictures, send them to hello@cedarseeds.com. We'll put this in the that's cedersseeds.com, and send us some pictures. And if we like your pictures, we'll put them on the site, and we'll give you a free package of seeds. So there you go.
Very nice.
Also, just a reminder, you can become a member at jointhemajority.report.com. And when you do, one of the benefits is you get the show commercial free. All right, quick break. We're going to be talking to Digby, or you may know her as Heather Parton. Be right back. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Emma Vigland, she's out. She'll step back in a second. So I'm in an extreme close-up at the moment because we're going to cut to a three shot as the Digby theme song plays in the background. Matt is out today, so Bradley is frantically switching from computer to computer. So bear with us. Good job on this, Bradley. Heather,
Yes.
it's another Friday.
Yes, it is.
We've been doing this for a long time, and it is. We're in a very sort of like it is an odd sort of era right now, as we know in many respects. Well, I think it's safe to say we know who's going to be the two nominees at this point without any real question as to this. What we don't know is the shape of both, like, forget from a health perspective, just from a political perspective, what kind of shape either one of these guys are going to be in. There are big sort of potential drags. This is, I think, going to be one of, I wonder if it's possible if it's going to be sort of like the most disliked set of candidates that people have ever chosen between in an election, certainly like maybe in modern times. Let's start with the things that could be impacting Biden coming out of Michigan, and then we'll talk about Trump. The biggest union in Washington State, and Washington State is the home of the next primary that's going to happen on the 12th. Is that happening? Do we have when is a Super Tuesday again, Bradley?
Super Tuesday's next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
So this is going to be following. Here it is. Sorry.
Yeah, so March 5th.
March 5th
It's
is
Super Tuesday.
Oh, it's this Super Tuesday. Washington State is is one of the states where we're going to see organizers pushing for uncommitted. They're talking about Pennsylvania. They're talking about Minnesota. Even people are mentioning New Jersey, perhaps. What was your sense of the numbers that we saw for uncommitted in Michigan?
Well, it seemed to me that it was pretty substantial. I mean, it wasn't huge. It wasn't, overwhelming, but it was enough, I think, to get the White House's attention. And if this thing grows, it will continue to get the White House's attention. I don't think there's any doubt that this is a very serious issue that's come up in the Democratic coalition, and it's going to have to be dealt with. Politically, it's quite dangerous because it's not so much the Arab American faction in the Democratic coalition, because although they're very important, it's a pretty small faction. I think it's the under 30 vote, which seems to be very animated by the issue of Gaza. And as a result, you've got a very large group. When you combine the two of them, that is a faction that the Democrats simply can't afford to lose. So I think it made a difference there, and I think that the fact that it seems to be growing in other states, there's no avoiding it. The White House and the Biden campaign can try to run away from it, but they can't. It's going to be there for them, and whether they like it or not. And I think one of the things they need to be really careful of is that there's a convention in Chicago this summer, the Democratic convention. Very, very storied history of Democratic Chicago conventions, and they better be prepared for what that could be if there isn't a pretty swift change in policy.
Hey, Heather, I just joined back. Sorry.
Hey, Emma. Hi.
Hey, wait, sorry, Sam, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I thought that point that you made there about Chicago was really well said and on point, because there have been comparisons that, Jeet here was on the show and talked about how there are a lot of parallels, I think, with LBJ and Vietnam and Biden, in terms of Biden's efforts to use, he called it butter and guns and butter. The idea that Biden is supporting Israel in this slaughter, and then also at the same time had that domestic program and is hoping that is kind of what's going to carry the day. But then you talk about the convention, the parallels there for the 1968 Democratic Convention being in Chicago. It's a little eerie, I think, honestly.
Yeah, it is eerie. And I don't know. I mean, obviously the circumstances are different with, the Mayor Daley of Chicago and everybody knows the history of the Chicago Convention. I mean, it was unbelievable. I was a little kid, but I remember seeing it. I remember my mother sitting in front of the television just going, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Of course, she had two sons that were Vietnam draft age at the time. So, kind of a big personal sort of situation there. But in any case, the parallels there do exist. I mean, they're not perfect, but there is some parallel there. And the fact is just reality that, as far as the two of them being unpopular, they're very unpopular. Although I might argue and say that Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton may have been more unpopular even than Donald Trump and Joe Biden. So, but nonetheless, it is going to be one of those, elections, and we seem to have those a lot. And it's, John Kerry and George Bush wasn't exactly a, rah,
right.
love the guys. Well, on the Bush side it was, but that's because they're crazy. But in any case, I think that this is going, the upshot is this is going to be a big issue. And I think that it's something that has to be dealt with. I think what happened this week, the horror of that slaughter that happened yesterday, the massacre in Gaza, I have a feeling, and maybe I'm wrong about this, that this is a watershed event, that somehow or another, it just feels to me, I was watching the BBC, I was watching, reading some foreign papers and things. This seems to have galvanized foreign governments in a way that I haven't seen it happen before. And that pressure is going to be brought to bear, I think, on this. And it's not enough to say that the U.S. is, we'll do airdrops of humanitarian aid. That is simply not going to cut it. And the idea that, the hope, I think, fervent hope, is that somehow or another, rather than this blowing up whatever ceasefire talks were happening, that maybe it will actually push, both sides to come together. This was such a horrific event. I don't know if that'll happen, but that would be my hope. But I don't know.
I can't see how this is going to help the peace, the ceasefire talks, unless our government does something different. I mean, I think that fundamentally there is no other leverage point. Bibi Netanyahu, this is as much as Donald Trump's election to presidency is an existential question for him. This is the same thing for Bibi Netanyahu, and I think without U.S. exerting its pressure, and I'm not sure that would be enough. It's unclear to me that the U.S., if it cut off all aid tomorrow, it would impact.
I don't think it would. At least not in the beginning. I mean, it would have an influence, but I don't think that Bibi Netanyahu is in a position where he's going to say, well, if the U.S. is out, I guess that's it. I don't see that happening. However, it's a necessary step to that to the Israelis saying enough and making it, it's got to happen internally, right?
It's not going to happen.
Get rid of him.
I think one thing that I think we could be clear is it's not going to happen without the U.S. doing that.
Right.
The U.S. may not in and of itself be able to do it, but the first step, and we've seen examples in the past where Reagan was able to sort of stop the Israeli assault on Lebanon, and he was surprised by it, and that was obviously a very different time. But the thing that strikes me, and I don't know, I've seen conflicting reports as to whether the Arab/Muslim community in places like Georgia and Michigan wouldn't make a difference if we're seeing numbers like we saw,
right?
In 2016 and in 2020, depending on what state it is, alone. But you're right, as there's an even bigger cohort of younger people who did not grow up with the same relationship with Israel. I think.
Well, I'll
largely
say,
speaking.
yeah. I mean, I'll I'm going to be 30 soon, but I've only known, when I've been cognizant, an extremist far right government of Israel. I mean, Netanyahu has been in power for a majority of my lifetime, and so my generation and younger, that's the perception of Israel. And also my generation sees it as a settler colonial issue and a racism issue and one of segregation and separation. And I think that is so far behind where Biden perceives things. It's the diplomatic cover too that I think is part of what enables Israel. It's not just the aid. I mean, if aid stopped tomorrow, as you say, Heather, I don't know if he would change course, but the other piece is the fact that the United States in the United Nations, defending them in the International Court of Justice,
Absolutely.
That's almost more impactful, honestly, because they have a very robust weapons and military industrial complex at this point based on years and years of supplementing it.
Absolutely. And I don't disagree with anything you say. I even as one who did grow up with an Israel that, and I don't know that it's ever really been a liberal government necessarily, but, it was kind of in the circumstances that it existed. And we've talked about this before, the shadow of World War II and the way that people like me and maybe even Sam, who's younger than me, grew up with this idea of Israel sort of being, something of a protectorate, I think, of the United States and Europe in the shadow of World War II. I understand completely how that has changed. I totally understand it, and how the whole world has changed in light of that. And of course, what we're seeing now is beyond the pale. There's nothing in my history of, observing Israel that would have prepared me for this level of absolute overwhelming slaughter. And that's even with me understanding the trauma of what happened on October 7th. And even, I think we can all understand that. And, in a lot of ways, let's be honest here. They're doing a lot of what we did after 9/11, which was lash out indiscriminately and just basically decide that this is an opportunity. Let's just go in there and we're going to fix all these problems. We're going to just get her done. We have an excuse to do it, and we're going to do it now. And we all know what the result of that was. It was a catastrophic, horrific error. And, we all knew it. And yet the government and the military industrial complex and everybody else sort of just let it play out. I mean, how many years did it go on? And let's be frank, one of the weirdest things about this is that Joe Biden, of all people, seemed to be the one guy in government who understood that and wanted to get out of Afghanistan,
Right.
8-9 years ago. And now here we are. So I have to be honest, I kind of thought that was something that experience was something that meant something to him, and that he would actually follow through in this situation, which I haven't seen yet. And it's very disappointing. Let me just put it that way. Not that I love Joe Biden. I don't love any politician, but I don't particularly love him either. But that has been a big disappointment, because I thought this was an area that he was a little clearer than some were.
It really is. I mean, it is baffling. It is baffling in a number of ways. I mean, I honestly don't think that we have had a Democratic president who would have reacted like this. And I don't think we will ever have another Democratic president who would react like this to what's going on. I think even like there's a significant number of Republican presidents who would not have this kind of blatant sort of disregard for the reality of what's going on and hang in there so long and enable it in this way. But on top of that, just putting that aside, as a political matter, it is so hard to reconcile, and we can sit here and we can say it's a political liability. We can't know for sure that this is going to cost Joe Biden the election. There's a lot of other factors. We don't know exactly how many people would vote against it. I mean, part of the uncommitted voting in the primary is a way of saying, like, we don't want to, enable Donald Trump. This is the best mechanism in which we can signal to you, like, this is going to be a problem for us. And we're giving you ample time to do something about it. This notion, and it's quite clear. And I think there was a piece in Politico this week where, there was a feeling about, Michigan saying, when it comes time to make a choice between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, they're going to choose the lesser of two evils. That very well may be. But to go out there, and one of the sort of like themes of the administration and sort of like the larger apparatus of the Democratic Party is to talk about how Donald Trump and the empowering, presumably like the Heritage Foundation and the 100 other organizations that are around there is a fundamental threat to American democracy. Let's just take it on face value. I don't want to, I can be cynical about the idea that, where we are at on that but for the moment, let's just stipulate, okay, it is. At the same time, and we've talked about this, they are acting as if it's not. Right. The cost associated to Joe Biden to call for a ceasefire 2 months ago, to say we're conditioning aid, to doing all the stuff that ultimately is going to happen, seems to me political costs, much less than the one that he's exercising now. And if we're facing an existential threat to the future of this country, they're not doing everything to signal that. They're saying that, Joe Biden's out there talking about how great Mitch McConnell is. They're as if he doesn't understand what's going on in the Republican Party. The people voting for Trump don't like Mitch McConnell. They're out there talking about, adopting Republican immigration points, talking points, essentially, and pursuing Trump era policies on asylum. They're not acting like these people are a threat to democracy. It's sort of like, I don't know. It's like, you and I both have had experience in the film business. It's like basically, we're gonna do a short film about a fire. I'm gonna yell, "There's a fire." You cut, and it looks like there's some smoke, and you cut back to me, and I'm just standing there. I'm not running to get. I'm just like, boom. All of a sudden, you're like, wait a second, we're getting mixed messages here. Is there a fire or is there not a fire?
He's by the way, he's fundraising a lot. That's his response to this. He was just in Boston for a fundraiser, right? In California recently as well. That's where his priority is right now, electorally.
Well, I mean, I think that's probably always fairly true of any presidential candidate. But I do think, you bring up a good point, Sam, and it's something I hadn't really thought of, which is maybe what the real problem is here. It's the dissonance in the message. And there's more to it than that. Joe Biden won in 2020 and has continued his, sort of, image as president, as as Mr. Empathy. He's the guy who cares, who is concerned about people and cares about real people. And Donald Trump is this monster. Well, it's really hard to make that case when you're seeing children starving in Gaza and he's taking the position that he's taking. And it has been dissonant to me, and I hadn't actually thought about it until you just brought this up. The fact that the messages that are coming out with this, and look, I think we know what the calculation is there, right? They figure they've got swing voters, suburban, white women, this sort of group that they think they can appeal to by him saying nice things about Mitch McConnell or saying, "Come work with me, Donald Trump, on the border." They've made that political calculation. We may not agree with that. But in light of the fact that he's also making a calculation, or isn't making a calculation, that there's a threat coming to him in his coalition from the left and from, Arab Americans, from young people, from a lot of liberals of conscience here on this, that they're not taking that into account, or at least haven't up till now. And we have to, hope. It does sort of tell you that this existential threat, which I actually agree is true. I mean, I believe that it is an existential threat if Donald Trump wins again, because I think he's, crazy. And I think the people around him are monsters. And I think that it's a serious, serious threat. But this does not seem like a wise political calculation. As you lay it out, the dissonance the messages that are being put out there are starting to make people really, wonder, and they certainly aren't inspiring anybody. And it plays into the perennial age issue, which, is a whole other thing. And it's not smart politics. It's not smart to be doing this. And I don't know if they're going to get this together. I am really hoping, not for the sake of his politics, but for the sake of the people of Gaza and the future of this country, that they get this issue right really quick, because if they don't, we are facing a very, very, very horrible consequence of them not doing it.
I mean, I hope that they even getting it right quick is even enough time, both from a perspective of just like, getting it right quick at this point is not, I don't think it's ever going to, I think that the amount of trauma that has been experienced in a country where, half of the population, more than half the population are children and have gone through something like this is just, it's almost incomprehensible to me.
Can I just add really quickly, because there was a focus group, MSNBC interviewed some uncommitted voters in Michigan. Mm-hmm. And 2 of them said he could win me back, right? If he stops. The other 2 said no. Mm-hmm. One of them said, "Why is our democracy more important than the lives of Palestinians?" And what do you say? And then she was a young woman. I don't think she was Arab, just a young.
Well, we know what the argument for that is that it will be worse for the Palestinians, or it will continue to be as bad.
I'm not in favor. I hear that. I'm a harm reduction voter, and I'm in agreement. But the point that Sam, I think, just to your point, in terms of the damage done to the people of Gaza, but the damage done to some portion of these uncommitted folks.
I hear that.
It's scary.
it's scary. I don't know. I mean, look, if they're gone, they're gone at that point. I mean, you
Right.
can't get them back. But
I don't think they're not going to vote for Donald Trump. I mean,
they're not going to vote for Donald Trump. They're
we're
going to
going to
stay
take
home.
that,
Stay home.
yeah,
They're gonna
and
stay
that we
home.
don't need that, and that's a
Right.
terrible thing, and we don't want
Right.
that. We want them to vote, and look, forgetting the politics, we just want the policy to be right. And whether those people can forgive what's happened so far, I guess we'll just have to live with the result of whatever's happened so far. But
what's your sense? What's your sense that the voting of the uncommitted is, and like I definitely agree with you that within the press, I mean, I am seeing within the press a sort of like recognition, like, wow, yeah, maybe this is really over the top at this point. And I'm seeing, people who earlier in this conflict had I have seen slight changes, in what they're posting on social media or this and that. I mean, there is movement.
Sure.
Like there's an awareness. Do you think the uncommitted vote that took place in Michigan, and if it continues to grow, because I think, so much of this is a function of trends, but if like in, Washington state, if in Pennsylvania, the states in California would have been a great one to try this in too. Maybe too many numbers, too big of a place to impact on some levels, and largely irrelevant, maybe because it's not important in the general election. You got maybe North Carolina, I guess, and Virginia and Minnesota that are arguably like sort of, swing statey. They're not some of the key ones. But Michigan, has a lot of impact because it could be 10,000 votes.
Yeah.
It could be 50,000 votes that decide this. But do you think that the uncommitted thing is impacting the administration in any way? And the only thing I've seen any evidence of is like, you've got to March 10th, I think it is, to send us a letter saying you're not using our weapons to break international law. I mean, but do you think it's having any type of impact? And
Yes,
okay.
I think it is. Absolutely, I think it is. And I think the protests are having an impact. Look, people are showing up at, speeches by Hillary Clinton about reproductive rights, and they're making these protests. Now, those are minor sort of disruptions. I mean, look, there was a guy who,
Right. Aaron Bushnell
immolated himself the other day. Of course, I mean, I don't think they're stupid. I mean, I think they see this, and they certainly they have to understand. I know they do. They're just not, they may be immoral, but they're not stupid. Okay. And I think they absolutely know that this is a danger in an election that is looking to be as close as it was in 2020 and in 2016. It's not, it's not like, it would be one thing if they were running 15 points ahead and they could say, yeah, well, where are they going to go? You could say that. They can't say that, and they know that. So, something has to give here, and it has to be, and probably the roadblock here is Biden himself. Who
without a doubt,
simply, and I'm sure, well, we know there are people in the administration who are pushing, for a change in policy, but, that is where it's going to have to happen. And, Biden also has to see that when you get what was over 100,000 people in Michigan who voted uncommitted, and you can make the argument that some of those would have been uncommitted anyway, because all the earlier, every election has a certain share of uncommitted voters. Every primary has that. It's not abnormal. But we know that in this case, there was an actual program to vote for uncommitted, right. And a lot of people did that, 100,000 votes. It could be take 10% of that group. That's all it could take to lose the election. And they have to know that. So, I think it makes a difference. And it's a really smart protest. Can I just give these people some credit? This is exactly how you should do this sort of thing, because it wasn't like just saying, oh, we're voting for Trump or vote third party or anything like that. It was just a very specific issue and a very specific thing that was using democracy to make a point in the most I don't want to say benign, but in the most pointed and yet damaging way possible. And I really admired the fact that they did that.
The quality of this protest is that it places these 100,000 votes, give or take, on a precipice. And so it gives the sense that like these are gettable votes and they're losable votes. They're not votes that we can put in our back pocket, but they're not votes that are so far gone that it's not worth the effort to exert to get
you
them
might
in.
call them uncommitted. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, but that is really the value of it. I think it's really a smart protest too.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just add to the thing that I think got Biden elected. Part of that may have been his supposed empathy. I think there's an element of that, but I think it's also was a question of like, he was perceived as a leader, like, and a leader, not in the sense of like he's trailing, he's on the vanguard of some type of movement, but that he's like somebody who is like competent and not going to rock the boat and
bring the country together. That was
bring the country together.
That was his pitch, right?
But I think like the thing that really people just felt like is it's just not going to be quite as a shit show. And like things are going to be calmer, and to have protests like this and to have this sense of like things are like sort of out of his control.
It's starting to run out of control here.
It makes it harder to differentiate. And I think they're trying to do this with the border. I think that's their theory, but I think they're mistaking the text for the subtext. So instead of like going to the border and saying, we need funding to make an orderly way for people to come in and to dreamers to have like an established, place in this country, and for DACA and DAPA, and for people who want to be here and have proven themselves, and maybe they've got to do it over 6 years or whatever it is. Like, you can take control of an issue without adopting the policies of Trump. Like I think the issue is less like they're in promoting this notion that there's a crisis there. It undercuts his leadership argument, and so rather than saying there's a crisis, it's like there's a failure of the Republicans to just do their jobs. And it is a manufactured crisis. The crisis is not with the number of people coming across the border any more than the crisis is like people want to get driver's licenses. If you don't hire people at the DMV, there's going to be a crisis because you're going to have more people in line than can be handled at the DMV. And that's the way that you could go in and show that level of competence. But instead, they're out there, basically, it seems to me, trying to make it like, there's a crisis at the border. And that just seems to me to be a mistake, because that, again, undercuts the leadership argument.
Absolutely. And of course, it's completely, it is not going to work. I will never understand why Democrats do this. If you run on a Republican issue like this, you're going to lose. This is, immigration crisis and caravans and all, migrant crime and whatever else this stuff is. These are not issues that Democrats win on. That is, it makes no sense for them to be running with, we're going to be just as tough at the border as Donald Trump is, except he won't accept our toughness, and so he's wrong. That is not, you're absolutely right. The way to have framed this is to say, look, we have a lot of ideas. We have many things that we think could help the asylum process and do things and make this thing work better. And they are not willing to do that. They're not willing to do anything because Donald Trump wants the issue for the election. That's it. Shut up after that. Just, you don't need to say anymore. Just let that sit there and let people look at that and go, you're right. I mean, which I think most people will. If you just put it that way, no, this is ridiculous. We're trying, we'll do things, we're negotiating, we'll meet people halfway. They won't do anything. So why are we talking about this? And let it go.
Here is Biden speaking in Brownsville, Texas, near the border, talking about that bipartisan immigration legislation.
I hated it.
But that's the thing, is that like you could have come up with any failed bipartisan legislation, right? There wasn't even a vote on it.
True.
And
That's
so,
right.
Why are you alienating your own people who care about immigration.
Well, that was the big thing, right? I mean, that was the whole
this
thing
clip,
about that
Bradley.
stupid negotiation.
Here's that clip.
This compromise legislation will also give me, as president, or any of the next president, emergency authority to temporarily shut down the border between ports of entry when the numbers of immigrants and migrants, overwhelm the border.
Pause it for a second. Okay. Now, how do you talk about giving yourself or the next president this unilateral authority when you're also arguing that the next president could be a psychopath?
Exactly.
Who doesn't like that people have an accent when they speak?
Don't worry, Don, we're legalizing it all for you. So, why won't you accept what we're doing for you, Don?
Bradley, clip it back up there.
Emergency authority to temporarily shut down the border between ports of entry when the numbers of immigrants and migrants, overwhelm the border, straining the Border Patrol's ability to process them. At the same time, at our legal ports of entry, like here in Brownsville, we're making investments in infrastructure. My bipartisan infrastructure law is going to provide nearly $4 billion new dollars to boost security, to ease waiting times at land and ports of entry like Brownsville. And I want to thank again Congressman Gonzalez for helping me get that through and get it passed as the law. That you get the money for example, that's how you got the money for the Gateway Bridge from that fund. Folks, the bipartisan border security deal is a win for the American people. And it's a win for the people of Texas, and it's fair for those who legitimately have a right to come here to begin with. It's a win for the people of Brownsville, and I believe that's why the Border Patrol Union endorsed it. I believe that's why the National Chamber of Commerce endorsed it, not known as a Democratic organization with a capital D. Look, and that's why the Wall Street Journal endorsed it as well. This is a truly bipartisan initiative. That's why the bipartisan South Texas Alliance of Cities endorsed it. Folks, I didn't get everything I wanted in that compromise bipartisan bill, but neither did anybody else. Compromise is part of the process.
I'm curious, what is it that he wanted that he got out of that bill? I know he didn't get everything he wanted out of that bill, but why should the idea of funding this be the get here? Like, what is the get? There is no get.
Without, by the way, any more liberal. I mean, the entire border element is all right-wing stuff. Funding and more militarizing the border, giving ICE more money. Okay, if you want to frame it as a compromise, what is the element of a path to citizenship? Modernizing our processing system so that people can get through the process and see a judge when they need to, and we have a better record and procedure for processing migrants. That wasn't even a part of the discussions, let alone what. Well, I mean, what is he talking about?
Well, what I think, you got to step back a little bit and recognize just how brilliant it was that Mitch McConnell put together this idea of mixing the border deal with the Ukraine funding, because that was supposed to be the compromise. We'll get our Ukraine funding and you get your militarized border. Didn't work out because the Republicans wouldn't take yes for an answer on their border side, but it didn't work out for the Democrats either. And McConnell and the Republicans brought that to the Democrats and said, look, and they did it in the most insidious fashion. And I don't know if they even meant this at the time, but it ended up working out, hey, we'll get, this will really work out. We'll get all those wingnuts over in the House to vote for this because it's got all this border stuff in it. And then we can get our Ukraine and Israel and Taiwan funding in there, and maybe a little bit for Gaza too. But, we'll just get that in there and they'll run with it because, it's immigration, and you know how they feel about that. Meanwhile, you got Donald Trump running foreign policy down in Mar-a-Lago, and he sees that this issue is good for him and he wants to keep it, and they basically trap the Democrats into and don't tell me that they didn't know they were doing this. They knew that they were going to inflame the Democratic coalition. If for chance imagine if the deal had gone through, what the left, on top of they're all already feeling about the Gaza policy. This immigration bill had gone through
Absolutely.
as well.
Absolutely.
So they knew what they were doing. It was a total trap. And it was just lucky. I mean, I think I mentioned this on here before, that maybe Joe Biden has a preternatural sense in some ways of when the Republicans are going to refuse to take yes for an answer, because he has, the rhetorical spot that he thinks he wants. And I don't know if this is going to work for him. And I agree with you, Sam. It makes no sense. And it's stupid to be out there saying this stuff. But nonetheless, they've made a calculation again, the white suburban moms, I don't know, the conservative Democrats at the border in Texas and Arizona, maybe, that they're trying to, reach in and grab some of those people with this kind of tough talk about the border. But it would have been a whole lot worse if that bill had passed, if the Republicans had taken yes for an answer. So, this thing is just, it infuriated me the minute I heard it. The minute I heard what are they doing now? Ukraine and the border are going to be in the same basket. What the hell?
I'm sorry.
And of course, this is what happened.
That they thought that this was not going to, at the very least, get voted in the Senate, because it was going to. Mitch McConnell certainly thought it was going to get voted for, and he had to do an about face, and Tom Tillis was left out hanging dry. I mean, Tom Tillis was I'm going to release a recording of this, thing where McConnell told us that Donald Trump won't allow it to happen. I don't believe that Biden had that magic, ability.
I don't really either. I just say that because he's been in that position. He did the same thing.
Yes, he did the same thing as vice president with cutting Social Security. Yep. But the problem is, and someone's saying like, oh, how can you say that Biden can't address this? He's 2070 on the issue. The reason why he's 2070 on the issue is not because he's not saying we need to close the border at 5,000 migrants as opposed to 4,000 or 8,000 or 10,000. There's just not that level of sophistication with the American public. He's at 2070 on the issue because they keep playing into that there is a crisis on the border and he's the president. So if there's a crisis anywhere and you're the president, you're responsible for it. And if you're out there saying, I don't have the ability to get this through Congress because the guy who's not president has the ability to stop it, you're also saying, I don't have the leadership skills that this guy has.
Absolutely. And they keep saying that they have no control. It's not a good idea to go out and tell people that they should be feeling a certain way. So you can't, like on the economy, you can't tell people that the economy is good. You can't tell people that immigration isn't bad because they think that these things are true. So you have to, for some reason, play into it. Well, you know who doesn't believe that? Donald Trump. Donald Trump tells people what he wants to tell people because he wants them to believe it. And for half the country, almost, that works. And by the way, if you have the additional, benefit of those things being true, you have to tell people what's going on. You have to actually say it. You have to go out there. You can't pander to some vibe thing that the border is a crisis and that migrants are killing everybody in the streets, in the cities, and whatever else is going on out there. You have to tell people the truth. If you do, a lot of people will go, wow, gee, I heard that such and such was happening.
I mean, we dealt with this with George W. Bush in 2005, saying that Social Security is a train wreck. Mm-hmm. And there were some in the Democratic Party who were like, well, there is going to be a shortfall of funding in 2033 or whatever it was. And, in 2034, there's going to be the trust fund's not there. And what won the day and destroyed George Bush over it was the Democrats saying, no, you're talking about, junk in a car because the radio is bad. Let's fix the radio. And then the car keeps running fine. And that's the way that you approach that argument. You're playing on his territory. And meanwhile, like, you should be out there. There's plenty of material to talk about Donald Trump's why his proposals on immigration are wrong. Here is clip number 9. Here's Donald Trump talking about immigration. So you could go in and say, like, I'm not going to do his policies. And he's trying to stir this up. Like, we need real immigration reform, and the Republicans just won't do it. All they'll do is this.
These are the people that are coming into our country, and they're coming from jails, and they're coming from prisons, and they're coming from mental institutions, and they're coming from insane asylums, and they're terrorists. They're being let into our country, and it's horrible. It's horrible. And, you know, I know many of the leaders of these other countries that are doing it, and it's not just South America. It's all over the world. The Congo, a very big population coming in from jails from the Congo. You look at the jails now, you take a look at the jails throughout the region, but more importantly, throughout the world. They're emptying out because they're dumping them into the United States. And these guys try and make like, oh, isn't it wonderful? They don't have a clue. I think they're looking for votes. They're looking for something. Nobody's really been able to tell me how anybody could want it. You know, you're always in business. You always want to understand the other side. You want to figure it out so you can do something that's good or bad, depending on what you're looking for. But nobody can explain to me, because everybody I speak to says how horrible it is. Nobody can explain to me how allowing millions of people from places unknown, from countries unknown, who don't speak languages. We have languages coming into our country. We have nobody that even speaks those languages. They're truly foreign languages. Nobody speaks them. And they're poor.
I mean,
just put that, they should just put that in an ad and just put this, none of this is true. This is all bullshit. And just put that up as an ad. It's the most insane rap that I have ever heard a politician give. It's so outrageous and puerile and, you know, just completely absurd.
Yeah, I mean, there could have been a track on this where, you know, and where Biden says, like, you know what, immigrants actually strengthen the country, and we do need resources in which to, but we also need to be fair to these people and recognize their humanity, et cetera, et cetera. And within the context of this, we're not going to get the policy that Donald Trump wants, because the Republicans, or Donald Trump, I should say, that he'll want when he's president, because he doesn't want Biden to have any type of like success on this and be perceived as having done anything. That's the thing. Even Trump knows that even if Biden was to do what Donald Trump wants, he'll get credit for it. So the opposite is also true. As long as Biden did something and could say the Republicans are standing in the way of this, that's all you needed to do. Fortunately, that stuff didn't happen, and it didn't completely alienate all, like the people who genuinely care about immigration, because you could still hold out hope. Well, maybe if there's a different, political situation, but we went much longer on this other stuff than I had anticipated. I thought we were going to talk about how the sort of the impeachment stuff is blowing up in the face of the Republicans, and this immunity.
It is
trial.
delicious, I have to say. That
It's
the
very
impeachment
fun.
stuff is making me so. There's so little to be happy about that. That's about That's
yeah,
my
and you know
highlight.
what's funny too is like it's almost as if it's out of a movie. This Alexander Smirnov
is.
guy, doesn't it sound like a name that if you're coming up with a
Yes.
Russian character in your movie, it's just like
It's like Boris and Natasha. It's like
right.
Well, it's because it's named. Its last name is the same as like one of the most
It's the
popular
vodka.
The liquor.
vodkas that
Yeah.
existed in this country. For
I know.
decades. That's all it used to be. Like when
Yeah.
Heather and I were out drinking,
That was it.
back in
You
those
got
days, there was
Smirnoff
only
or
one
nothing.
vodka. There was no like specialty vodkas where people
No.
realized that this is a commodity. We just need to put a different branding on it.
Right,
It was all
right.
Smirnoff.
Yeah.
That was it.
That's right.
Um,
That is absolutely correct. I drank my share.
Well, let's just briefly talk about the Supreme Court thing. Just briefly, the Supreme Court has decided it will hear the case, the question of whether Donald Trump has presidential immunity. I don't know that in and of itself was absolutely like, maybe you do want to hear it, but it seems to me if you're going to hear that, you should expedite it.
Yeah.
like they've done with many other rulings so far, because this seems like a big one, right? I mean, this seems like a pretty,
Just a little
pretty
bit,
big
yeah,
one.
a little bit.
And it's going to be decided now. I am going to bet it's going to be the last one that we hear.
Yeah.
And it's going to be in like the first week of July.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to guess it's going to happen. I don't know off the top of my head what day July 3rd is, but whatever the closest day to the day off, the weekday is of July 4th, that's when we're going to hear it. And it's unclear that this case is going to be resolved at that point. We should say the DOJ, there is a prohibition policy within the DOJ not to pursue indictments in the run-up of an election, but they've already done that. This is in the court's hands, and my understanding is that Merrick Garland has said, like, it's out of our hands, it's up to the court. What like, aside from the fact that, like, we know who this Supreme Court is, has it had any other sort of like influence, and it's going to have an impact on the election on one way or another? You're going to have these sort of like unresolved questions about the president's criminality, I guess. But has it done anything else? Like, I mean, has it changed anybody's perspective on the Supreme Court? I mean, is it?
No. And, look, I got my law degree from, Law and Order SVU. So take what I say with a grain of salt. But I do, my guess is what's going to happen is exactly as you say. It'll come through on the last day of the court term, which will be the first of July. And what it will do is they're going to say, well, we've decided that there are some situations where a president should have some kind of immunity for official acts. And we're going to send this back down to the trial court to decide whether or not what Donald Trump did qualifies under that, at which point Judge Chutkin will, she may even have a decision prepared. I would if I were her. But then it will be appealed and it'll go back up to the appellate court, and then they'll do it, and then the Supreme Court will do it again. All of this is going to take place after, meaning that the trial has virtually no chance of happening before the election. As to whether or not it changes anybody's mind, I don't know. These people in polls say if he's a convicted felon, I will not vote for him. He might be a convicted felon. There's a trial going on in New York, in what, a month? I mean, it's the hush money case.
Right.
He might be a convicted felon. He's not going to go to jail for that. I mean, it'll probably be a fine and, I don't know what, some kind of probation or something, but he's probably not going to go to jail, but he will be a convicted felon if they convict him on that case. But I just have never believed that was, why, what does being convicted really tell you? Because that, Donald Trump will come out and say the jury was a bunch of,
Right.
and they're a bunch of liberals, and it was all rigged. And most of his followers will believe that because they believe anything, apparently, anything that he says. So I don't know that it changed anything. It was, it's depressing to think that the Supreme Court would do this. But, on the other hand, you and I remember, Sam, 2000, when everybody said that the Supreme Court would never interfere with an election.
Yep,
They would
yep,
not,
yep.
This is out of their hands. It's not a federal situation. The states have to do it, and the Congress has to do it, and the Supreme Court has nothing to do with this. And we know what they did. And once that happened,
that court was supposedly far more, sort of reasonable.
Yeah. And, and it was as partisan as it gets. It was a partisan breakdown. You had Sandra Day O'Connor, the great moderate who we all, worshipped because she was, the one who kept the balance on the court. She was at a party going, this is terrible, marching in and out because the Florida Supreme Court had asked judges in Florida to do the recount. I mean, I'm not kidding. No, most people don't remember that. The recount was being done by actual judges. It wasn't even done by people,
Right.
They actually, and they were sitting there in their robes counting the ballots, and John Bolton ran in and said, stop the count. I mean, that was the craziness that happened as a result of the Supreme Court doing this. And from that point on, I realized, once the court, the court is just another political, branch, just like any other. And it's horrifying that they have a lifetime appointment, and basically there's no recourse when whatever they say, and that's what they're doing now. And I won't be surprised if they say presidents do have immunity, except in cases where we say they don't. I mean, I really wouldn't be surprised. Just, it depends on whether they're a Republican.
Yep.
This is our. So let's just put it this way: the court's not going to save us.
Right.
This is
I
about
agree
Gillett.
with that.
And everybody just better wrap their minds around it. This is kind of a nice sideshow. I'm enjoying the impeachment thing with Hunter, as you said, Emma. That's fun.
Yeah.
The cases are fascinating because Donald Trump is a corrupt, criminal monster, and that's a fascinating thing to observe. But it basically has nothing to do with whether or not we're going to, completely turn ourselves into an authoritarian Christian nationalist hellhole. Yeah. And
on that note, Heather, always a pleasure.
I know. I'm such an upper on a Friday afternoon.
It's hard to be. It's hard to have.
It really is.
Days,
this is tough. This is tough. Tough.
Yeah.
Heather Parton, folks can read you twice a week at Salon, right? It's twice and
3 times: Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
3 times, and of course, more or less daily at Hullabaloo. digbysblog.blogspot.com. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It was fun, even though it was not fun.
Exactly. As always.
All right. Talk to you guys later.
Yep.
I think we had
Heather.
I feel like we've had Heather and I probably have had like a couple of weeks over the course of the God knows how many years now it's been that we have I'm doing that we have talked where it was actually genuinely just fun.
Right.
Not a mix of fun and
Can you remember
horror.
when that was?
I feel like right after they passed the American Rescue Act, there was a lot of hope for I feel like 2 months, and then he started opening the door to the Republicans, and then it was like, okay,
yeah, right.
rough, very rough.
Yeah.
All right, let's head into the fun half, folks. Just wanted to give you an update on the GoFundMe that Emma hosted Muhammad yesterday, who is the uncle of the family. Is that right?
Yeah, well, it's his 10 family members. His sister, some of his family members. I'm sorry, I don't have it off the top of my head, but his niece is one of them. Include the family members, and she has Down syndrome.
Right, and he's trying to basically smuggle them out of Gaza. We had spoken to, I think it was one of the doctors that we had spoken to had said that there's basically a $10,000 per person type of situation to get people out of Gaza, and
we're getting so close to that 60,000 euro goal.
Folks can check it out. We'll put the link in there again. Really getting close, and it's I don't know. There's so much suffering there that it is hard to. But it's hard to wrap your heads around, and you donate money to aid organizations and whatnot, and really the issue there is the aid getting in. Like you said, we've had multiple guests who have told us of the hundreds of trucks just lined up, outside of Rafah or. Where Israeli protesters are basically having parties in front of aid trucks so that they can't go in, and the Israeli military, of course, saying that's fine with us, but this is an opportunity to help one family, and I don't know. For me, it's a nice feeling that with all the sort of frustration about seeing this horror show and feeling, having a limited ability to do anything materially for anybody there, it's helpful. So,
and just a little more context on Muhammad with his niece Afaf. He says in the body of the GoFundMe description that the bombing and the violence is extremely sensorially disruptive to someone who has Down syndrome. So
Yes.
it's, as much as it obviously is harrowing for everyone involved, it is doubly so for someone with a developmental disability like that. And he also has told us that he told me, at least, or in the description of the GoFundMe as well, that this money is also being distributed to other people as well who also need aid, because in his words, Gazans help Gazans. And
Right.
this was at around 31,000 euros yesterday, and now it is at around 46,000.
Yeah, folks have been really great.
Thank you so much. Mohammed was messaging with me on WhatsApp and expressed his sincere gratitude and for all of the help and all of the awareness being raised for this.
All right. Guess we're gonna take a break and head into the fun half.
Sounds good.
Emma, what's happening on ESPN this week?
Yeah, we're, slower time, but still always things moving, like the EA Sports now, because NIL is legal, name, image, and likeness for college football. They are able to put players' names and use their likeness for the game. But how much money are they offering the players? It's a disgustingly low amount. We talked about the labor issues surrounding that. We also talked about Doc Rivers and what the drama going on with the Milwaukee Bucks. More other things as well. YouTube.com/ESPN show.
Left Reckoning. Matt is at Griscom's wedding right now.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if the wedding's happening right now.
This weekend.
Yes. So who knows what they're going to be putting out? I would check out their channel though for live streams. And there's I feel like the chances of somebody inebriated in that wedding party doing a live stream, it's got to be high. I mean, I would hope Griscom wouldn't do it. I mean, he's
got to be busy. Yeah.
I would hope, but who knows? Folks can check out the Left Reckoning YouTube channel. Also, very, very important that with the upcoming elections that you get out the vote.
I can't believe. So can you take me through your thought process of making this into a t-shirt? Because we often will say, like,
I know. I don't know.
Like, let's make this a t-shirt. People should understand, like, the way that happens is really it's just a function of, like, of some reason Julie responded to that one as opposed to any of the other ideas. And I'm like, okay, I
do
that.
it.
I love that.
I know, like, the whole thing was that they were really excited that I can't remember who it was that Charlie Kirk, I think, was saying, like,
it was Jack Posobiec who said it.
Jack Posobiec, same difference, really. Like, they've got, they think they have all these
Taylor Swift
celebrities. We've got John Voight.
Yep.
And then somebody get the Voight out.
No, I remember how it happened, but like we will have stupid little jokes like that, and we'll say, let's make that into a t-shirt. But this one just like, so I guess my answer, you answered it. This really tickled Julie's funny
heard
bone.
it and said, I've got the Get Out the Void t-shirts. And I'm like, oh, okay.
It's just so wonderful. That turnaround was great.
I know I didn't have to, but I did buy one because I wanted to support the show. And also, I really want to Get Out the Void t-shirt.
I want one too, but I'm not paying for it.
It is like one of those things. It's so obscure.
Yeah.
That, but it's on. Also, we got Left is Best is on there, and that's also pretty obscure.
People have been asking when the Majority Report t-shirts are going to come back up there.
Oh, really?
Are we
run out?
Yeah, I'll talk to Julie about that. We got maybe
Julie should have made some like versions like those. Should have done like the Emma Majority Report. Get Out the Void.
I know. Well, I mean, that might be a little dense, Sam.
Putting a hat on a hat, as they call it.
Yep, exactly. But I want to do. I'll talk to Julie about it because I want to do it in like just white and like different colors this time if we do have majority. So.
Also, folks, don't forget justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. And again, Cedar's Seeds. If you took some pictures of your seedlings last year that you grew with your cedar seeds, send an email to hello@cedarsseeds.com. We will put a link to that in the descriptions and send some photos. Maybe you'll be chosen to get some free seats. All right, folks. See you in the fun half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Anarchy. Alpha males are back. Boys back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boys back. And the alpha males are back.
Just wanna degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman!
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Cedar, what a fucking nightmare.
Bring back DJ Danner.
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males.
Psych. Fuck them.
Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. All lives matter.
Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on! Fuck 'em. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday! Happy birthday to me, Jew boy!
I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are black. Africans are back.
Come on! Come on! Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
We are back. Sam Cedar, Emma Vigeland, Fun Half, Majority Report Friday. Maddie Moron on the IM. Just want to give a huge shout out to the MR Discord as well as the channels for True Anon, the Antifada, and Mark's Madness, and all the comrades on my Twitter and Facebook for raising almost $300 in the span of maybe